Okay, I'm gonna try to sum up the important events of the plot of 13 Sentinels for an upcoming video, so if I make any mistakes, please correct me. This is from playing the game through a second time recently. Alright, order of events. These are my notes that I was taking. Backstory. CEO Goto muscles Morimura out of Newman Inc. Morimura starts the ARC project. This was before the nanomachine virus outbreak, but she was still already convinced that humanity was too far gone and needed a restart. Why? Unclear. Morimura creates the ARC project. It is stopped by CEO Goto due to a waste of resources or like ethics committee things or whatever. Anyways, he muscles in. Kengo's AI instructs Professor Morimura to spread nanomachines in the black market, causing the viral outbreak that dooms humanity. It's unclear to me if Morimura was also aware that this would destroy all of humanity, but I don't know. She was really gung-ho about the project, so maybe she was aware and did it anyways. Megumi arrives in the colony, delivered by her sick father. Izumi takes her in. Morimura discovers that Okino happens to be her long-lost son while doing DNA analysis. Goto hires Sekigahara to assassinate Morimura to cover up some shit for some reason, even though, like, this was already after the nanomachine virus outbreak and, like, the world was already destroyed. I don't know what need there is to cover anything up when there's, like, 20 people left of humanity, but whatever. Izumi adjusts the settings of the simulation so that Professor Morimura... Well, okay, that was after they started killing each other. So, Sekigahara assassinates... he kills Morimura, destroys power to the colony. They have resource disputes over the limited power supply, and people start getting violent. Izumi adjusts the settings of the simulation so that Professor Morimura's memories will be uploaded onto her clone's body at the end of the simulation. Alright, so that was the backstory. Now to first loop that we can see that's documented in the memories of people. The kids in Sector 1... Okay, I should clarify. As far as I can tell, at the start of the loop, these are where all the people are. In Sector 1, we have Okino, Izumi, and Morimura. Sector 2, Shinonome, A, and Goto. Sector 3, Megumi, Tomi, and Ida. Sector 4, Nenji, Yuki, and Natsuno, and Sector 5, Miura, Hijiyama, and Tamao. Okay, so, first loop that I guess apparently becomes aware of Sector 0. The kids in Sector 1 discover the UFO or the mainframe or whatever in the countdown, probably by digging underground during the kaiju attack, similar to how they can access the one in Sector 3 for most of the game. They find the countdown, they experiment with all the shit. They discover some stuff. They start experimenting with the shifting to different sectors. The countdown ends and they're forced to retreat to Sector 0. Okino's left behind, so it's Izumi and Morimura. So, start of the next loop. Izumi and Morimura grow up. They destroy factories. It's unclear what happens in between, but they destroy factories that make kaiju. There's a scene where they're getting like attacked by cops after they blow up a factory. So it seems like a really rudimentary tactic that they're using. So in my mind, that would give me the impression that they don't know that much by then. If they're just trying to blow up a fucking factory out of like... we were literally told that there's billions of factories, but whatever. Right in that scene, the cops of the universe capture Izumi. He's labeled Prisoner 426. They hold him until the kaiju attack. I believe that was in... I forget what sector that was in. But anyways, yeah, so the kaiju attack that sector, and I guess he escapes at that moment. In the meanwhile, Morimura has collected some of the other people, like Ida and Miura and Tamao and such. 426 backs up his new data in Sector 0 at some point. He's the only character that has memories from every loop, from 2 loops ago to 1 loop ago to the current loop. 426 somehow escapes prison, shifts to Sector 2, and was present there to kill all the other people. Like, between him escaping prison, which was literally at the start of the kaiju attack, at least in one of the sectors, between then and now, he has somehow learned a shitload more information and, like, knows about the decode and all sorts of other shit, and is now here to, in Sector 2, to, kill all of the other people with the decode. Somehow he got that information, not sure how, or, like, when, or what that process looked like, or how he knew which people were compatible. He just got a shitload of information in a small period of time off-screen. Between then and now, they build the Type... Well, they built the Type 98s, which I guess were, like, already existent designs that they pulled from the mainframe, which is the same place the kaiju get like, the Daimos, the excavating materials and such. So they download, like, these design mock-ups for Type 98s, and they print them using the factories, and then in this process, they kind of realize that the Type 98s are capable of shifting. So they didn't know that the Type 98s they made could shift, so that's, like, how, like, their rudimentary pre-Sentinel technology. Also, at some point off-screen, they set up gates, like, gates outside of the UFO for shifting. Not clear how they knew how to do that or when they did that, but whatever. They say, yeah, so, and once you save yourself in Sector 0, it will just produce a copy of you for the next loop. So it will produce, like, an AI that's apparently just no different from all the other AI inhabitants and is managed by universal control. So you copy yourself to the next loop. So technically every loop you can get, like, another duplicate of yourself. So Morimura does not survive the previous loop and does not re-upload herself to Sector 0. So the one that appears in our current loop is the uploaded data from 2 loops ago, not the previous loop. So they also get, like, they, like, kind of partially upload the data of some of the other people, like Mira and Tomi and such, into Sector 0, but they don't get placed anywhere. They are just, like, registered in the mainframe somehow. Anyway, so Ida goes back, starts the next loop, so now we are at the current and final loop. They find, so first thing Miura and Ida do is they find, the first thing, I guess, is they find the baby versions of Morimura and Ida, and they, like, take them somewhere else. So they take Morimura from Sector 1 and place her in Sector 4 and rename her Iori Fuyusaka, and they do the same thing with Ida and turn him into Shu Hamaguchi. Morimura finds Nenji and injects him with nanomachines. I'm not sure how he knew this information. I guess, again, because, like, clearly that this shit with the decode was not, like, their plan in the previous loop, like, when it was just Izumi and Morimura that transferred over. They were just, like, blowing up factories and shit. So, like, clearly from 2 loops ago, they did not know that much. So current Morimura would also not know that much, because she only knows the limited amount that 2 loops ago Morimura did. So I guess Ida knows something that they don't, or whatever, but anyways. So they shoot Nenji with nanomachines. I literally don't know what they did or why. Like, I am very unclear about what this was. After that, Morimura at some point makes a clone of herself in the interim years, I think 5 years before the current present of the game. So Morimura makes a clone of herself just in a science attempt to make a compatible version of herself, and just by sheer fucking chance accidentally downloads the Professor Morimura from 2188 and puts her into the clone of herself. Yeah, and then leaves the baby in Sector 5. They find... Okay, so because 426 uploaded his data to Sector Zero in the previous loop as well, some point before, and this is also a plot hole, I believe, because Izumi, or Juro, gets memories of 426's life from, like, the dreams and the movies and the videos he watches and stuff. So one of the things that he sees in these visions of 426's memories is the scene where 426 was, like, killing the other kids. But if we're to believe what we're told throughout the game, that's not physically possible, because he uploaded his memories to Sector Zero before that event. So he should not remember that. No version of Izumi should remember that event. But somehow that's in his memories, so that doesn't make any sense. Anyways, so when he uploaded his data to Sector Zero, he erased, or like updated the previous version, so he removed his spawn point for the start of the next loop from Sumire Bridge, where he started the previous loop, and then moved it somewhere else that I have no idea where. Completely no idea where. But he was doing something all this time, and now in the present, they find him, and Morimura kills him again. At some point along the way, they made the Sentinels by, again, just kind of downloading schematics from the mainframe on the Daimyo. So they're just literally copy and pasting shit that already exists, and, like, kind of hackneyed fitting them together to make the Sentinels. So that's why the Sentinels can shift between the districts and stuff, because that's just hard coded into the Daimos. They have no control over that, I guess. Like, again, it's a big stretch because it's like we have to believe that they can modify the code enough so that they can reconstruct all the mechanical parts to make the Sentinels, which are pretty different from the actual Daimos themselves, and they have to add the ability for the Sentinels to be piloted by someone, because the Daimos just control themselves. They are just simply operated, so they have to add, like, human interaction components for the pilots to mentally control the Sentinels with their nanomachines or whatever. So clearly they have to be able to modify the code on some level, but but apparently they just can't do anything else. Like, they can't figure out how or why it allows them to shift, or they can't change it so that other people can control the Sentinels. They can only control the Sentinels with the compatible people that have access, that have the decode, whatever, in them. So that's a big stretch and is pretty stupid. Anyways, Ida in this period is, like, working on AI and androids and shit, and in this process he brings back 426. I don't remember if this is mentioned. I'm not entirely sure if the 426 that he downloads onto the android that he's questioning is the one from the previous loop, or if 426, before he was killed in the final loop, uploaded his memories again onto Sector Zero. So I don't know if this has, like, if this version of himself has the memories of, I think it has to, because he acts pretty differently, and his plan is no longer to kill all of the people with the decode. So I think he would have had to, at some point, re-uploaded himself onto Sector Zero in the final loop. Goto joins somewhere along this point. Goto joins in and starts investigating the mainframe and the logs. They know a lot at this point from information they acquired off-screen. Like, they have this perception of the Aegis system and what will happen if they activate all the Aegises and stuff, and they seem to know a lot, and I don't know how they would know stuff like that, but, like, what will happen if they trigger all the Aegises. Goto investigates everything in private. Number 17, the AI of Miura from the previous loop, also downloads some logs to store them in himself in secret. Morimura deletes a bunch of the logs. I think her literal only motivation for that was just because she was embarrassed that the Morimura from 2188 did some bad things. I think that is literally the only reason. And Ida made Shinonome. Ida convinced Shinonome to upload the virus that would sabotage. So Ida, by this point, his only goal is to cause the loop to happen. Just fuck this current loop, wait for the next one, so he can do some shit with the Tomy AI. So he sabotages their Sentinel fight in Sector 2. The virus was created by 426 at some point. So, like, I imagine in the interim period between... I imagine somewhere between his attempt to murder everyone with the decode versus him making the DD426 virus, which in theory was made to separate their nanomachines from their brains, also in an attempt to remove the virus, or the decode. So he probably made that in the current loop, which was also a failure, because I don't think it worked. I don't think it, like, succeeded at doing that. But anyways, so yeah, so Ida uses that and uploads the virus to fuck everything up. And then they start the Battle of Sector 2, virus fucks everything up, and then another just completely unexplained bullshit happens. They, quote-unquote, randomly shift. They're forcefully shifted, and they just show up in literally random places. And this is, like, a huge plot point, because number 16 and number 17 end up in orbit, quote-unquote. So anyways, yes, they are randomly shifted, and that's it. That's what happened. And Ida fakes his death at this point. I guess he just goes into hiding. Okay, after the Battle of Sector 2, Juro gets randomly shifted to Sector 3 and meets Tomy and Megami. One thing that is also never explained is how all of the main characters just conveniently, like, know and interact with each other. Like, I would understand after a certain point, because, like, they seem to get a lot of information off screen, so they probably at some point learned who all is compatible or not, but they don't, like, for instance, like, the people that originally discovered Sector 0 in 2 loops ago are just Okino, Izumi, and Morimura. So no one else. Just all those 3 people just randomly happen to know each other. The only 3 people that matter just randomly happen to know each other in this giant city, and they have, like, they know no one else. Like, no, like they have no, like, friends like Miwako or anything that are AI constructs from Universal Control. They just all just happen to only involve and interact with the other main characters. Anyways, yes, so Tomy and Megami get brought on board with this, or well, they stay in Sector 3 until Sector 3 is attacked, or at least Tomy does. Ida's gone into hiding by this point. He is somehow the boss of the Special Investigations Unit in Sector 4. I don't know how the fuck that happened, but apparently he has, like, his own company of, like, police force and government officials and whatever. Okay, sure, I guess, that, fine. That's just how it is now. He collects Shinonome, who was randomly transported there. Inaba, otherwise the Tomy AI from 1 loop ago, otherwise number 16, Inaba also somehow knows about all this shit, I think because she had interactions with 426 when 426 escaped the lab by tricking her and Ida, but whatever. So she knows about all this shit and, like, the DD426 virus and stuff, and so A was randomly shifted to Sector 1 in the laboratory. Conveniently, thankfully, he was shifted underground and not, like, in the irradiated to shit fucking surface world. But anyways, yes, he was shifted to the laboratory, the underground lab in Sector 1, and he meets Inaba, and also throughout the entire game there's, like, random zombie androids that Ida's left behind that I guess he programmed to, like, attack anyone that moves for some fucking reason. I don't really know what their goal is. They don't really accomplish much, but whatever. It feels like you could do a lot more with your security if you're trying to kill anyone that comes in. Anyways, Okino's Sentinel, I believe Okino is the one whose Sentinel was shifted to Sector 5. And then what I believe happened is that, like, the military of Sector 5, the military of 1944, found the Sentinel and then collected it and then decided to use it as a weapon in the mainland war. Or otherwise, at some point in the process, Universal Control shifted, like, all the people of the time to believe that it was created in that era as a weapon to fight against the U.S. So I think that's what happened. He was randomly shifted into Sector 5, and then Universal Control made it a part of the military effort. And then Okino and Tamao had to infiltrate this to get it back. Okino states that he had already used DD-426 on himself, and he has he's uploaded a program that runs his memories or something. I don't know if this means that Okino is no longer compatible, although I think he would have to be compatible because he was piloting the Sentinel in Sector 2 in the Battle of Sector 2. So anyways, by circumstance of tests that Okino had run on himself previously, he is not affected by the memory loss of DD-426. So he could technically pilot whatever Sentinels he wanted, no problem. Anyways, so yes, the military recruits Miura and Hijiyama as pilots for the Sentinels. Again, I'm not super sure why. I don't know if Okino, in infiltrating this military process, convinced the people to recruit Miura and Hijiyama, because Okino would probably know that they are compatible. I don't know how the fucking military, the Japanese military of 1944, would know to recruit Miura and Hijiyama for pilots, if not because of... It's just a very weird situation, and it's also a big, stupid plot hole, because Universal Control never does anything like that ever throughout the entire rest of the game. In all of the other places where the Sentinels randomly transmit, in 85, they just, the police of the area are just what the fuck is this giant robot thing? But it's not like Universal Control shifts their perception of it to make it make sense in the world like it does in 45, where it convinces them all that it's the super important thing and that it's guarded by, the military. Universal Control never does anything else like that in the entire game, and, takes some crazy fucking event and recontextualizes it to make sense and make this whole new narrative about it. All the other times it just fucking ignores when Sentinels show up and stuff. So that's stupid. Anyways. So yes, Okino approaches... So Okino is also kind of going undercover and faking his death and stuff, because he knows that someone sabotaged them in the Sector 2 fight, and he doesn't know who. So he's working on his own. Probably why he also trusts Hijiyama, because Hijiyama's a fucking straightforward idiot. Anyways, A somehow finds Okino in Sector 5, because A was looking for Okino, because Inaba told him that Okino would know about DD-426 and maybe be able to help A avoid his memory loss. But anyways, somehow, with no explanation, A discovers that Okino is in Sector 5 and confronts him, even though the entire explanation was that Okino was hiding so no one could find him. Somehow A just finds him there and confronts him about DD-426, and then in this process, he kind of blows everyone's cover. The military think he's a spy. Okino, they're also suspecting Okino runs away. They all leave Sector 5. Okino, A, and Hijiyama and such. Anyways, next segment, several months later after this event, Goto is, Goto with Morimura and the rest of the organization are repeatedly visiting Tamao in Sector 5 and giving her memory pills with, I guess, the intention of uploading the number. I don't know what number she is. I forget what number she is. But the previous loop Tamao AI into her using these memory pills. The same thing that Morimura is trying to do with Iori Fuyusaka. Both of which they stop halfway through. They just fucking give up. Anyways, Juro fucking falls in love with Megumi in less than a month. If you look at the timeline, this is less than a month, because Juro only meets Megumi after the Battle of Sector 2, which means after he is already subjected to DD-426 and he is in the process of this memory loss disease. He is actively losing his memories. We are told that, like, we are told that, like, at the longest you can maintain your memories without, like, the pills is a month, and it's probably going to be less time than that. So within that time period, Juro meets and falls deeply in love with Megumi in, like, maybe 2 weeks, probably. And then after that time period, the Deimos attack Sector 3, and he fights by himself for, like, a couple hours or whatever, and completely, like, destroys his brain in the process. But anyways, yes, even though that was not necessary because there was, like, no chance of him winning and he could have just left, but whatever. Tomi, Megumi, everyone else escapes Sector 3. Morimura decides that fighting is not an option because the Sentinels are all infected with the virus, and then decides to fully commit to the Aegis plan, which is confusing to me because I'm pretty sure the Aegis plan also requires them to have the Sentinels, because we're told in the, like, destruction portions that they can't activate Aegis ahead of time. They have to wait until the Daimos start attacking, and then they are allowed to start the Aegis system. So no matter what, even if you're just doing the Aegis plan, you still need the Sentinels to defend the terminal points. They still need the fucking Sentinel, but whatever. Anyways, Ida's the most, like, does so many things with no real explanation or plan, and then everything backfires on him because it was completely unclear what his 4D chess play even was. I don't understand any of Ida's plans or long-term strategies, but they all seem pretty fucking stupid. So anyways, at this point, Ida hires A to stop or kill Morimura or whatever, because he wants to stop the Aegis thing. So I guess he just, like, straightforward, he's like, hey, go kill Morimura. I don't know why he can't do it, or have his Men in Black guys do it that he controls in 85, because Morimura also just hangs out in 85, but whatever. So he hires A to stop Morimura. None of the people that Ida hires ever do anything, and Ida seems to have other manpower and, like, androids and other things, but he never seems to actually do anything. It's just, like, taken as a given that he is around and these are his goals, but he never seems to take a single fucking action towards them at any point. Anyways, yeah, so Ida hires A to kill Morimura and trick the Miura AI, number 17, into divulging his secret memory logs, because Ida does not want the memory logs to be revealed because it would reveal treachery on his part towards Shinonome. I think that's his only reason for wanting to hide the logs, because his only goal at this point is just to let the fucking Daimos destroy everything and have the loop happen again. So anyway, so none of his objectives or goals make any fucking sense whatsoever, but so they give Juro the new personality at this point, because he's brain dead. So they give him the Kurabe personality. At this point, they are already drugging Iori and Amiguchi now. Because, yeah. Tamao thinks that Morimura, well, she's accurate, but Tamao suspects that Morimura is trying to make Juro into 426, because by this point Morimura has already learned that something was... Okay, this is something I also don't understand. We're told that Ida lied to Morimura, because, like, Ida was the only one that survived and went back from the previous loop. So, when he meets Morimura in the current loop, it's the Morimura from 2 loops ago. So, she doesn't remember any of these interactions with him or anything that happened. I don't know why Ida would lie about anything, what his motivation would be, like, at that point, because at that point he was just, like, a normal guy that was, like, part of the process of trying to stop the kaiju. But so for some reason he lied to Morimura about some plot that 426 did that killed a couple of the other people. But that confuses me because 426 did kill people. Like, he did kill several of them. I guess Ida just lied about him killing more people than he really did. Like, he did kill Megumi... I forget what the other one was. He killed some people, but apparently there was just like an accident that killed the other 4 that they turned into AIs to pilot the Sentinels. So there was just some accident, and Ida lied and said that accident was also the result of 426. So either way, it's a weird lie, and it's also a weird... because what does it matter? Because he was actively trying to kill all of them, so I don't understand what this exactly changes. But anyway, so Morimura, from this revelation that he lied about some of his murders but not others, decides that 426 is not that bad, I guess, now, and then is trying to upload 426 into Juro, which I don't think is at all relevant to the plot, because 426 enters Juro just by happenstance later in the plot anyways, and the thing with Morimura trying to turn him into 426 is not really relevant to him becoming 426, and it's not part of anything, and I don't know why it was included in the plot. But anyways, Iori meets... Iori runs into A. I believe this is like the start of the next school semester or whatever. Iori runs into A, meets Tomi. They start talking about all their dreams. Characters start interacting and sharing information they have. And then Iori just randomly happens to trigger the gate in the science room, which overrides the lock. Okay, so this is another thing, as there's a bunch of like weird restrictions and locks and stuff that are also, weirdly enough, like the most constant and important plot points is what is locked from who and by when and what, which is great writing. But anyways, so Iori happens to override the lock, and I don't know why it was locked. I don't recall why it was locked, but whatever, they locked it because fuck you. And Iori overrides it because she has the same biometric ID as Morimura. And Goto notices this and then becomes suspicious and uses Iori to run experiments so that he can learn more about Morimura in the mainframe. Goto is like the only character that I think actually makes consistent sense throughout the story. So yes, Tomi is just like being pissy about being stuck in 85, I guess. So she's trying to return to Sector 3. Okay, this is another thing. Maybe it's in the secret files. I don't know. I didn't read every secret file. But they're mostly just like telling you stuff you already know. But in rewatching the plot, I cannot understand this. Tomi, there's an interaction where Miwako invites Tomi to meet Nenji, and then they are all like there together, and then like Iori is there also, but not really. And then they're just in like some hallway. They're just in like some random fucking hallway. I believe they're at a different school, because they went to go visit Nenji, who goes to a different school, I think. So the three of them are there, and then for some reason, even though I don't think there's a gate where they were, and nobody did anything to trigger it, and I thought all the gates were locked at this point anyways, somehow all three of them just randomly shift at that exact moment to Sector 3. I don't know how the fuck that happened. Somehow they also can't make it trigger to go back. It just happened, and it also just randomly happened to be at the same time that Shinonome and A also shifted to that exact same location from one of the gates in the school. And then so they all, like, kind of meet there. It's very baffling. Anyways, next section. New school semester, Yuki joins the SIU. So, Yuki is, like, in jail, I guess, and then Ida pulls her out of jail and then hires her, and what he says is he's like, oh, wow, you're tough. You're, like, good at beating people up, you 16-year-old girl. You want to join my organization? I don't know why the fuck he did this. I don't know what this accomplished. Again, the 4D chess, the galaxy brain of Tetsuya Ida, and what the fuck he's trying to do with any of his decisions throughout the story. But for some fucking reason, he hires Yuki, who never does anything to benefit him in any way, and I don't get anything about why he did this, but he hires her and then tells her to, like, spy on people at the school. Anyways, at this point, Inaba contacts Amaguchi at night through the TV. Iori goes back to the science room where she remembers shifting and starts investigating, and shifts again to the mainframe in Sector 3 and sees A and Shinonome there, which is weird. I don't know what the fuck A and Shinonome were doing at this point, because they were there in the mainframe in Sector 3 previously, but then they left with everyone else. They all left. And when they all came back to Sector 4 and Universal Control reset Miwako's memories to not include that point, but they all left, but Iori just comes here, and then just by happenstance, also at that exact moment, A and Shinonome were there. They just went back there again. They're just, like, running around, like, fucking randomly. Again, another point I don't understand. I don't know what exactly he's doing or why at this point, but he just leaves the scout unit with the Miura AI in the school, and then Natsuno finds him, and then they start their adventure of looking for Sentinel 17. I don't know why A left the scout unit, or if number 17, like, ran away from A or something. I don't know what happened here. Anyways, they changed their mind about overwriting Tamao's memories, so, or maybe Goto did, because at this point Goto is kind of, like, kind of suspicious of Morimura, so he might be acting on his own at this point. I'm not entirely sure. At this point, the Daimos attack Sector 5. Natsuno is in Sector 5 at this point. I believe what happened? Yeah, anyway, so Miura fights. He boards the Sentinel that he was trained to pilot in the military. He boards Sentinel 19. He fights the kaiju for a bit. During this, meanwhile, Goto kidnaps the professor. So he's, like, learned something. He takes the child Morimura clone away, kidnaps her, and then leaves Tamao there. So Goto is already very suspicious of Morimura by this point. So at this point, his idea is he thinks that Morimura is, like, being mind-controlled by someone or influenced by someone, so his plan is to take the child's Morimura, the clone, not Iori for some reason. He doesn't do this with Iori. He takes the child clone of Morimura and then decides to kidnap her, so that he can upload the Sector 0 information of Morimura, which I guess is just the Morimura from 2 loops ago. I think, probably. I mean, I don't see why it wouldn't be. Which is also weird, because the Morimura from 2 loops ago is fucking useless and wouldn't know anything. But he's trying to upload Morimura into another compatible body, I guess, because he thinks something is wrong with the current Morimura. So that's like what he thinks is going on at this point. Anyways, Miura is fighting the kaiju in Sector 5, and Natsuno is just like hanging out in his Sentinel, just hiding in his Sentinel at this point, and then they all shift to Sector 4. Let's see. By pure contrived coincidence, Miura, like, while wandering around 1985, gets knocked out by Nenji, and then Amaguchi just happens to be there. So all this just happens to occur, and then Amaguchi takes the knocked out Miura back to his place. So this is how Amaguchi has, like, interacted with Miura, who by this point has already been modified, I forget by who, to force activate the Sentinels of the people he interacts with. Anyways, Tamao at this point offers Megumi the rental agreement, I believe with the intention of having Megumi, like, report on Juro's status to make sure he doesn't become Izumi. Like, I think that's what the Tamao android is doing here. 426 is still around. 426 in the escaped android body that he left Sector 1 with. So 426 attacks Natsuno. This was his original plan, is he was just going to come here and just shoot everyone with the nanomachines that gives them the Sentinel piloting stuff. So he sees Natsuno, goes after her, follows her into the bathroom, attacks her. They get into a scuffle with the Tamao AI that was contacted by the Miura AI. And then he transfers over to fucking the Tamao android. So at this point, like, the Tamao AI is effectively dead. Like, done, deleted, fuck you. So yes, so he does succeed in shooting Natsuno with the androids, and now he is in the Tamao android body. Miura moves into Juro's house at this point. Miura and a couple of others return to Sector 5 to look for his sister, and they find Tamao, the actual Tamao, who dies there. So I guess just Goto left her to fucking die. So that's cool. So Tamao and Okino are the only of the 15 who actually just fucking die in the plot. Natsuno and the Miura AI discover where the Sentinel is by accessing the mainframe. No, by accessing the Sector 1 information. Right. The professor... Okay, at this point, the professor in the child body, who is with Goto now, the professor removes the decode in the mainframe. So she has, like, fixed it. At this point, like, theoretically, the plot is over, because as soon as the professor appears, like, all problems just get solved. Because technically, the professor can just fix the problem and then just wait for the next loop to happen. So, theoretically, if this had happened in any other loop or anything, we're done. We're literally done at this point. But because she just goes and rewrites the code in the mainframe for like less than a minute, and the entire plot is solved. But anyways, Ida. Okay, let's talk about fucking Ida's genius. Just the magnitude of his genius. So Ida had the Miura AI, the scout unit, number 17, gave it to A with the intent of tricking him into revealing that location of the logs he secretly stored. But now he's asking Shinonome to capture number 17, even though number 17 is like a sentient fucking AI that could just tell Shinonome what he doesn't want him to see. So Ida sends Shinonome to find the thing that he is only doing this because he doesn't want her to find out. And then surprise, surprise, she does find out because the Miura AI lets her know that tells her that Ida's lying to her and doesn't want her to see the logs. I don't know why he did this in the first place. I don't know why Ida, when he had, after the Battle of Sector 2, I don't know why he didn't just fucking destroy the Miura AI. Why didn't he just destroy number 17 to stop him from accessing the logs or finding them? Anyways, so at this point, Shinonome confronts Natsuno by, again, kind of weird coincidence, because, when they shift into Sector 3, sometimes... I'm very unclear about how the shifting works. So sometimes they shift into that, destroyed building that's, kind of a few miles away from everything, and sometimes they shift directly to the mainframe underground. So Ryoko, for some reason, just believes that the destroyed building, is the hideout of 426. She's just convinced of that. And she just, hangs out there all fucking day, I guess, just to wait for who she thinks 426 is going to appear. And for some reason, when Natsuno tries to get to the mainframe, she shifts in. I guess there's just no other place to shift in from, even though we see that they can shift in directly to the mainframe underground. But for some reason, Natsuno just shifts into that building, and then Shinonome thinks the building is a great evil. And so, because Natsuno shifted it from that point, and she was hanging out at that point, she attacks Natsuno at that point and knocks her out and steals the Miura AI. So now Natsuno is stuck in Sector 3, and Shinonome has number 17. At that point, I believe Shinonome is going rogue at this point, because number 17 already told her that Ida was lying to her, and I think she's suspicious of that. So rather than just deliver number 17 directly to Ida, she's trying to figure out number 17's memories herself. But by this point, her memories are kind of becoming incredibly unstable, so she gives it to Yuki instead to hide it for her to access later, but she never remembers it after that point, as her memory goes... Yuki starts investigating Natsuno's disappearance because she's stuck in Sector 3. 426 in the Tamao body is helping her. For some fucking reason that is, I don't understand, is never explained, 426 decides to take the name Erika Aiba, which is, I don't know why, it's not so she can trick the school, because the school would know that, because Erika Aiba is apparently a real person, so that I guess he also murdered if she hasn't been showing up to school lately. So I guess 426 just fucking murdered this random unknown Erika Aiba character and took her place. I don't know why he would use someone's real name instead of just creating a fake name, because as soon as someone who actually knows the real Erika Aiba just says it, she's like, that's not Erika Aiba, and his cover is immediately blown. I don't know why he wouldn't just use a fucking different name. It's not like he needs to... Anyway, so somehow 426 is so stupid that he takes someone's real name that people can just look and see that he is not that person, and that's how he gets found out later. But whatever. So at this point, 426 in the Tamao android is following Yuki, and just at some unnamed point, or probably multiple times at this point, he uses this opportunity to inject her with the nanomachines that will give her Sentinel control. Anyways, by pure also circumstance, one of the last things that anyone saw of Natsuno was her running into the bathroom when the androids fought each other in the bathroom. So even though that had nothing to do with her actual disappearance, of her getting stuck in Sector 3 now, they investigate that, which also just happens to lead them on a path to discovering that 426 is in the Tamao android body. Cool. So I love circumstances. Anyways, at this point, Yuki just randomly gets into a fight with some thugs, the Wajima and his goons, and gets arrested just by the normal police. And then Onishi, who's like this uncle character in the police force, Onishi tells Yuki that they are transporting the Sentinel tonight to the Shikishima building, or the ship dock, or whatever they say it is. Anyway, so Yuki, upon learning this information from Onishi, sneaks into the building, and then, but it's it's like a trap. Like, she's confronted by Goto, Morimura, and Shinonome, who is also cooperating with them for some reason. I don't know. This is also another thing, is that, like, clearly Shinonome is, like, interacting with Goto and Morimura this entire time, even though she works for Ida, and Ida has faked his death, so with the intent of Morimura and Goto not realizing he's alive. But Ida also has his SIU people constantly, his Men in Black people, constantly fucking roaming around, investigating Shikishima buildings, investigating the school, harassing everyone, searching for all the... I don't know how the fuck, in this entire process, Morimura and Goto don't realize that something is up. Don't realize that they are being actively investigated by someone, and then search and discover that Ida is the one that is doing this. I don't know how the fuck they never question any of that, but whatever. So Shinonome has just integrated with them, I guess undercover or something. They ambush Yuki at this building. I don't know how the fuck that happened, because that implies that they predicted she would be there at this particular time and day. But the only reason she was here at this time and day is because Onishi told her, and Onishi was only available to tell her because she randomly got arrested in public by normal cops for something she did in public. So I don't know how the fuck, if they, like, leaked this information to Onishi, or if Onishi giving her this information was part of their plan, or if they would have lent this information to trick Yuki to coming some other way. I don't know how the fuck they could possibly know that she was coming there to ambush her at this point, but whatever, they're there. Who fucking cares? Anyways, they know Yuki's compatible. That's fine. They capture her because they're trying to investigate 426. I don't know if they knew this before or after they tricked her and ambushed her at this building, but they study her like nanomachines and deduce that 426 has interacted with Yuki many times. So it's clearly someone she has met several times. So with that, they deduce that it's the Erika Iba / the Tamao android. Anyways, yes. So, yeah, then, A also randomly happens to appear in the old building. This is another thing, is that some characters make sense for them to just be hanging around the old building during the day. Like Hijiyama. He's literally homeless. Like, so he has to wait for Okino at school all day. So he just goes to school so he can be nearby the area and hangs out in the old building and sometimes wanders around. That makes sense. I don't know why the fuck A is constantly hanging around the old building in so many instances to randomly happen to run into other characters there. I don't know why he hangs out there. Like, the Men in Black are actively searching the school campus for him and other people and such. Why would he be there and not literally anywhere else in the entire city? What could he possibly have going on here? But anyways, A just randomly happens to be in the old school building and randomly runs across Yuki, who takes out the number 17 AI that she hid, and then they start interacting, and then whatever, and then sharing information. And then at this point, they confront the Tamao android, they confront 426, they shoot him on the bridge, he jumps off the bridge, whatever. Oh god, where are we now? Yes, 426 jumps off the building, Jiro randomly stumbles across 426 escaping, and 426 transfers to his nanomachines. They just kind of they suddenly are like, now we found Natsuno in Sector 3. Let's go to Sector 3. There's a lot of androids have suddenly appeared in a single location. Now we know where she is. While this is happening, over the next several, whatever, for the rest of the game, Megumi's shooting a bunch of people with the nanomachines. Juro runs into Miura and accidentally summons Sentinel 13 with the forced activation thing. Hijiyama joins Okino at this point. They kidnap Nenji and they run tests on him. It's unclear to me what Okino's goal was, if they did succeed in finding the Natsuno, or the person with the who's sending the main signal. Not sure what they would have done, but whatever. Megumi is led into breaking him out, I guess. Okay, so this is also confusing, because, like, Nenji... So they're running a program that they don't even understand on Nenji, where Nenji is, like, doing this loop shit, and he's seeing, like, all these visions and stuff, and I don't know how this shit is all in his head, or, like, what I'm really even looking at, like, what is producing these visions in this, like, scenario and such, but Nenji is able to interact with 426. I'm not sure if it's the actual 426 or, like, lingering effects, or when this happened or why or how 426 is in Nenji's fucking visions. But it has to be 426 connected to him somehow, because 426 manipulates Megumi into going to break him out of there. So Megumi goes and they busts Nenji out and knocks out and shoots Hijiyama and Okino and such. Yes, then Hijiyama randomly runs into A in the old building again. A follows him, like, tracks him to find Okino, because he's looking for Okino, again, for advice on the memory preservation shit. And they map his memories, and that will be relevant later when they copy his memories just get returned because of this process they do. Then Tomi randomly stumbles across Okino shifting, and Tomi becomes acquainted with Okino, and they start interacting and doing shifting shenanigans. Amaguchi at this point takes Yuki to the edge of the city, and they find the enclosure in the 30-kilometer whatever city limits. Shinonome at this point researches the surveillance footage in Sector 1 and discovers that Ida's been lying to her. Amaguchi gets shot at this point by Megumi with the nanomachines, and then he activates the Sentinels, and then he, like, flies up beyond the limits of the enclosure and then interacts with Inaba again. But Ida also sees this Sentinel activation and then seeks him out. Juro at this point starts to learn information and understand what his situation is. The gates are all on lockdown again. It's weird because, like, people have been going to and from Sector 3, but now the gates are all on lockdown, so now they can't... Oh, now we can't go to Sector 3 from a gate. We have to find a Sentinel, so we can use the Sentinel to shift to Sector 3. So they do that. They find the Sentinel in the outskirts of the city, and they do that. And then they go to Sector 3, and then there's, like, lots of people are there, and there's a big confrontation, and Shinonome kills Ida while Ida was trying to delete Inaba, and Amaguchi's there, and Natsuno and number 17 show up there, but that doesn't make any sense because we were literally just fucking told that they can't use gates to travel to Sector 3 because they're all locked down, but Natsuno and number 17 use a gate to travel to Sector 3 after that, and then appear, and then they're all there. Inaba explains to everyone there the plan to modify universal control so they can remove the kaiju. And then we are told at this point that there's apparently a password that will fix the infected Sentinels. There's just a password that Shinonome applied when she first injected A's Sentinel with the infecting thing. So there is a password that will fix the infection, but Shinonome her memory is completely gone, so they give up. They're just like, fuck it, Sentinels are useless. Let's all go eat. Let's all just drink ourselves to death. Okino, at this point, kidnaps Juro out of just curiosity. I guess because Juro was acting like a fucking weirdo for a while. And so he just is curious and then kidnaps Juro and then discovers that 426 is in his head, is in his nanomachines. And then they talk to 426. 426 explains part of his plan. While also manipulating Megumi into coming to save him. So Megumi shows up at this fucking location 2 different times, to shoot Okino and Hijiyama and break someone out of the same fucking chair. It's unclear. Once again, it is still unclear how 426 knows all of this shit and how he know and what the plot is or whatever, but like, it's also just silly because 426 apparently knows fucking everything that they need to know to solve the problem. Like, he knows the whole plot and what they have to do to win, but just nobody trusts him, so nobody... And he makes no attempt to, like, collect evidence or, like, get people to trust him or integrate or anything. He just acts on his own, and everyone just doesn't trust him. So that's why he never explains any of this shit to anyone. At some unclear point, Morimura, we are told now that Morimura learned that the current loop that they're on is the final possible loop. That next loop, Sector 0, will be deleted and everything will crumble or whatever. It's unclear exactly what she says will happen. It's just that, like, the loop is not possible now. So this also doesn't make any sense. So, okay, how she learned that, when she learned that, and how it is even physically possible for a person to know that information is unclear. Like, I'm assuming just the facility is, like, failing or something. I don't know how the fuck the facility can monitor itself to be like, oh yeah, next loop, I'm totally going to completely fail. Imagine if you had, like, a vacuum cleaner, and your vacuum cleaner told you the next time, one more, I can sweep this floor one more time, and then I'm dead. I don't know how it knows when it's going to stop working, but whatever. So Morimura just knows somehow that this is the final loop. She tells A, and then weirdly enough, A does not disclose this information to anyone else. Like, even the Professor Morimura and Goto apparently don't know this, or it isn't true. I believe it's true, because we're never told anything to counteract this, but Goto and the Professor just don't know this, and A never mentions it to anyone. He just hangs out with the group, but he never feels like mentioning this fact to anyone. So yeah. She didn't tell anyone about it, because again, I believe literally the only reason she erased the data logs was because she was embarrassed that the old Morimura from 2188 did some evil shit, which is fucking awesome. Even though she could explain the fact that this loop is the final loop without using the data logs, and even then her plan doesn't make any sense, because, like, if the fact that they can't loop again is why she wants to do Operation Aegis, that still doesn't make any sense, because, like, if theoretically, if they can't loop again because the facility is going to be destroyed, or, like, it won't work anymore, it won't matter if they close the loop or not. It'll just collapse, right? Like, even if they close off the loop, it'll still just collapse. Whatever. Anyway, so none of this decisions make any sense. But anyways, the professor shows up and kills Morimura because she doesn't want the Aegis to happen, because the professor wants to loop, even though I guess she doesn't know that looping is not possible anymore. So yes. A finally loses his memories at this moment. Full stop. But then later they come back because of the shit that Okino did to him, I guess. Throughout the entire game, there's plenty of other instances of characters just remembering things that they theoretically should not be able to remember. Like, Jiro remembers memories of Izumi before he went catatonic, at some point. I mean, at least that has the explanation of, like, 426 was poking around in his head trying to make that happen. But still, like, there's lots of instances where, like, Shinonome remembers things that she shouldn't be able to. Lots of characters just fucking remember things. Not to mention some literal plot hole instances, like Jiro seeing a vision or a dream of old Izumi from the in the previous loop killing all the kids and then immediately dying, even though that could not physically possibly have been recorded in Sector 0, and thus that memory should not exist. But whatever. Then let's see what happens after that. Goto becomes suspicious of Morimura's death and other things, and then figures out everything about the professor in the child body. A gets captured by... What the fuck happened with that? Anyways, so A is there, and he's also injected with the nanomachines, and Okino and Hijiyama return to the mainframe in Sector 3 and wait for the satellite to come back into range. This is one of the things that I continually I've reread the thing over and over, but I don't understand this satellite bullshit, the orbiting mothership or whatever. Because theoretically, if there's like a satellite that like they have to wait for, I'm assuming that's literally in the real world. Like, not in the simulation, in the real fucking world. There's a satellite hovering over this new planet that they're on. And yet they continually, and the plot kind of fails to remember this fact and acts like they're not in a simulation at some moments, because they say that the Sentinel, that the 16 and 17 got shifted to around the mothership, but that's not physically possible because they only exist in the simulation and the mothership is not in the fucking simulation. And there's other things like, oh, they have to wait for the... Anyways, it makes no fucking sense. But, so yes, they wait for the Sentinel. So they return to continue doing what they're trying to do, to talk to / help the Inaba / previous loop Tomi AI, number 16, that's stuck in orbit. Again, I don't know if she's stuck in orbit in literally real life, or if she's still in the simulation somewhere. I don't understand what they're fucking talking about, because those are not compatible ideas. Either they're saying the Sentinel literally left the simulation and became physically real, which is not... This is the stupidest thing I've ever heard and does not seem possible. Or, for some reason, they programmed a satellite within the simulation that they can only communicate to when it's in orbit, but there's nothing to orbit because there is no planet, because they only live in 30-kilometer disks. There is no orbit. There is no fucking planet. But whatever. It just makes no fucking sense. Then, for some reason, Ida did not expect most of this shit to happen. I don't understand anything about what Ida's plan was with Yuki, or Shinonome, or A, or any of these people. He's the stupidest motherfucker in the universe. Anyway, so now he takes Iori hostage. A murders him. That's pretty much like the last thing that happens. The final battle begins. Hijiyama, in summoning his Sentinel, restores communications with Okino, who has, I guess, figured out more of the truth. I'm not sure how he did that, because Okino, like, everyone who dies, I guess, because Okino is now just sitting in his incubation pod in reality, in real life. Oh, also, there's I don't know if this is, like, a writing mistake, or just a miscommunication, but when you see the pictures of them in their pods, like, they're naked in their pods or whatever, they still have, like, the hairstyles and stuff that they had in the simulation. And, like, Tomi has glasses. Like, Iori has, like, her accessories, like her flower hairpins or stuff. How the fuck does that physically exist in their real-life bodies in the incubation pods? That makes no sense. But maybe that was just, like, a miscommunication between the writing team and the people that made, like, the art assets for the game. I don't know. Anyways, so, yes, then at some point while they're fighting, Inaba contacts them with this plan that they can now apparently do. Again, everything that they do from this point on is just like, now, all of a sudden, we can just do this. No explanation of, like, why they couldn't have done this before. Inaba just, again, literally randomly teleported to this satellite that literally can't exist. There's no reason for it to exist. I don't know what the fuck they're talking about with her in orbit. That makes no sense. But she's in an orbit that doesn't exist because they're in a fucking simulation. And because of this, she is in the mothership somehow and can access more information and, like, do more things than everyone else. Again, this was triggered literally randomly because she was randomly shifted after the Battle of Sector 2. And this circumstance, and maybe, I guess, because it's Tomi's biological ID, because she was responsible for, like, a later, like, the terraforming phase of the project, maybe that allows her special access, I guess. Anyways, for some stupid reason, now all of a sudden they're like, oh, there's something we can do. We can reprogram Universal Control slightly to recognize the kaiju, the Deimos threat, that they're not supposed to be there, and we can fix this. So then that's what they do, and that's the plot. And then Goto convinces the professor to help them do something, and then they win. Amazing.